As a home seller, after the transaction is closed, after all is said and done, the last question you want to ask yourself is, could I have gotten more money? Unfortunately, more often than not, most sellers don't have clarity at the end of the transaction, which leads them to ask these questions. Could I have gotten more? Are we sure we got the highest possible price? Did we leave money on the table? In this 3-part video series, I'm going to go over the 3 things that we do to ensure that our clients are never left to wonder, could I have gotten more money? And are always sure at the end of the transaction that they got the highest possible price. All right, so that brings us to the final part of our strategy. Part 1 and part 2, we went over marketing, we went over pricing, and now we've arrived at what I consider the most critical part, the most critical component of the strategy in which we can walk away as the seller knowing without a shadow of a doubt that you haven't left any money on the table, that you truly have gotten the highest possible price. And that comes down to the negotiation strategy. Now, my general rules for negotiations apply regardless of whether or not we have multiple offers on the table or if we just have a single offer on the table. Because in either case, my advice to every seller in America would be counter every single offer that comes in. And that's regardless of whether we have 20 offers on the table or just one. Whether there's a lowball offer on the table or if there's a great offer that we're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they'd ever pay that amount. In both situations and everything in between, we want to counter every single buyer that comes to the door. And I'll explain why. And my explanation is a simple question back to you, which is, when have you ever gone into a negotiation situation and offered your highest and best right off the bat? Never, right? Yeah, that's what I thought. Exactly. So every buyer that comes through the door, there is still some meat left on the bone. Now, whether that's 5,000, 10,000, 100,000, 200,000, that remains to be seen. But that's my job. That's my job to figure out how much room there's left. Now, I'm gonna share with you a story to illustrate this point. This is a home that I recently sold in Evergreen. And Evergreen is a great community, lots of interest because of the great schools, okay? So we knew going into it that we were likely going to get multiple offers. And so based on the Real Scout report and our understanding of the current competition as it stood, we decided to price the home a little bit under what previous homes had sold for in the community. So we had seen that like there were previous sales kind of in like the 1.34-ish range, okay? So 1.34 was kind of like, oh, we thought like the property comped out at, right? So, but based on the Real Scout report and based on the competition, the sellers elected to price it at 1.199, which was about $140,000 under the presumed market value for the home. We ended up getting 13 offers on the property, and right off the bat, we actually had a few standout offers that were already above the 1.34 mark. They were at 1.365. That was the highest offer. Now, mind you, at this point, my sellers are ecstatic. They're jumping up and down. They're, hooting and hollering because to them, it was a massive win. Their expectations had been exceeded. But I reminded them of the conversation that we had at the beginning, which was, hey, regardless of where the offers are when they first come in, we have to see how much each buyer is willing to step up. And in that moment, I saw the fear of loss flash before their eyes. And that is something that I have to coach a lot of my clients out of, is this misplaced fear of losing the buyers that are already there. Now, you have to put yourself in the buyer's shoes for a quick second. If you are a buyer and you really love a home and the seller says, hey, you're gonna need to step it up a little bit, is that gonna piss you off or tick you off to the point where you decide, hey, I don't want to work with these sellers anymore? No, absolutely not. You understand the game. And so you're going to do what you feel is best for you and for your family. But the last thing you're going to do is walk away. But sometimes it can be really hard when you've got a great offer on the table to gather up the nerve to go back and ask for more. But that's my job. I'm not just here to help you sell your house. I'm here to help you sell it for the highest possible price. And as you're about to see, there's a big difference there. So we ended up countering every single buyer that came to the table, back and forth. And there's a few that dropped out after the first one. So yeah, there will be some that drop out, but the majority of them stayed in it. And then after a series of 2 counters, we had a clear standout from the rest of the pack. They ended up coming up to 1.4 1.465. So $100,000 over the 1.365 offer. And guess what? It wasn't even the 1.365 offer that came up to the 1.465. So it was actually like the third, I think it was the third highest buyer that ended up coming up the most to win the property. So a couple of lessons here for us. Number one, we don't know how much room there is until we give the buyers the opportunity to step up. Number two, the first or second highest offer isn't always going to be the winner when everyone gets a chance to step up. A lot of agents make the mistake of only countering the top offer, like calling that agent on the side and be like, hey, can you sweeten the deal just a little bit more so that my sellers, get what they're looking for. But they don't take the time to methodically call and engage with every single buyer, every single buyer's agent, and actually go through the process of negotiating with every single one of them. If my sellers in that situation had just gone with their gut instinct and their initial emotional reaction, which was, yay, we got an amazing price, they would have missed out on $100,000. Think about what your family could do with an extra $100,000. And I know what you're probably thinking is like, oh, Danny, well, that's in a multiple offer situation. It's really easy to negotiate when you got lots of offers on the table. Well, yes, it is easier to negotiate in a sense when there's multiple offers on the table. But let's flip the narrative real quick and say, hey, what happens if we just get one? Well, it's the same approach. Regardless of whether it's a great offer or not so great offer, we do want to engage the buyer and counter them. And I'll share with you some psychological insights here. If a buyer comes to the table, they know that there's no competition and the seller just accepts the offer. What I found is that statistically, and there's no scientific or statistics to actually back this up, but just based on my experience, I will say that when a seller just accepts a buyer's offer without any sort of negotiations or counters back and forth, is that the buyer is much likelier to fall out of escrow, meaning not even go in and put their deposit in. Why? Because it was too easy for them. You see, human beings, we are conditioned to want things to be difficult, or we're programmed as hey, that should have been harder. And so when a seller says oh yeah, that's good, then what does the buyer start thinking? Oh, I think I overpaid for the house. Uh-oh. Maybe I shouldn't buy this one. Maybe I should go look for something where I could get a better deal, right? And their attention starts to flow there if you don't give them a reason to think that they paid fair market value. And by the way, countering doesn't always need to include price. One of the things that I emphasize with my clients is being strategic and knowing when to ask for certain things. Usually in a multiple offer situation, we just ask for everything up front in the first counter when we're countering everyone. You just tell them everything that we want, right? Because someone's probably going to step up and give us everything that we want. But in a single offer situation, we have to be a lot more strategic about what we ask for and when we ask for it. And so typically I would have to sit there with you and map out the entire strategy and map out the entire negotiation. And typically, if there are things that we know that we're gonna wanna ask for, I will save those for the second or third round, because we know, hey, chances are they're not, if they do go for this price, then we can say goodbye to the fridge and the laundry machine, right? If they're gonna pay us $50,000 more. But if we can't get that, then when do we ask for these things? And understanding how to map out an entire negotiation from start to finish is the difference between you knowing and you not knowing that you got the highest possible price for your property. If you'd like a full breakdown of our negotiation strategy and process, not just on the listing side, but also on the buying side, you can text the word negotiation to the number down below. That's negotiation to the number down below, and we will get that sent straight to your inbox. So that's really it. If you've watched parts 1, 2, and 3, that is how we ensure that our sellers know without a shadow of a doubt that they've gotten the highest possible price for their home, that they haven't left any money on the table. And it's a combination of all three things. It's not just the marketing, it's not just the pricing strategy, it's not just the negotiations, but it's the combination of all three of those things. And it's interesting how the marketing, especially the limiting the buyer's availability to go see the home, plays very much into the negotiation strategy and the process of countering every single buyer that comes in, because most agents don't do that. And so most agents don't really care how many offers come in. They care that they get multiple offers. But for us, we understand that the more offers we get, the more upside there is. And at the same time, when you think about Barry Buyer, going back to the first part, so if you haven't watched the first part, you should go and check that out. But you think about Barry Buyer, where he starts in the total absence of competition, going to see the property on a Thursday or going on a Saturday when the home is buzzing with 50 people. In which instance do you think he's going to offer more? Well, chances are, he's going to offer more when he sees 50 other people inside the home? Well, that establishes a price floor. And having been involved in countless negotiations now, I'm understanding that the higher the floor, the higher the ceiling. And so all of these parts play into one another. It's not just, hey, we market the home and pray for the best, or hey, we're great negotiators, but we don't really care about the marketing. No, actually, every single piece of this equation fits in, synergistically creates a process in which all of our clients, all of our sellers can walk away from the transaction knowing without a shadow of a doubt they haven't given away any of their money and that they truly got the highest possible price for their home. If you're thinking about selling your property and you'd like for us to assess whether or not our approach is right for you and for your property, you can reach out to me at the number down below to get something set up. Again, there's been many times in the last 8 years where I've walked into a property, I've met with the seller, I've assessed the situation, and I've told them point blank, I just don't think that our skill set is really right and our approach is going to be right for this home. And you can rely on me to come in and give you my honest opinion as to whether or not I believe that we would be the right fit for you and for your property. But the one thing I can guarantee you is that if we do choose to work together, you will never have to question whether you left any money on the table, and you will have 100% certainty that you absolutely got the highest possible price for your home. This is Danny Gould, everyone. I'm selling Silicon Valley, and I will catch all of you in the next video.